thoughts while standing in the queue. I was standing in the queue at the hardware store, waiting to get a heater to protect me and warm me from the Brighton spring, which is colder than an Arctic winter. And I was thinking about how it's a man's world. Every building is heated to the comfort zone of a 6 foot tall man that weighs over 175 to 200 pounds. And women are always freezing. No matter what happens, we always complain and say we can't stand it, we're shivering, and they say to us, oh, put on a jumper, it's hot as hell. And I remember my two husbands who left me within months because my feet were so cold, and I insisted on resting them against the small of their backs. They didn't seem to like that, and they forgot that they had sworn they would love me for better or for worse, but men do that kind of thing. One of the ways that I solved the problem was by getting myself a hot little dog named Dorothy. Dorothy had an extremely high metabolism, especially warm and especially like a heating pad that was on high. And it was a shame that her former owner, who abandoned her, was obviously a man, never realized her marvelous capabilities. I used Dorothy constantly to warm my feet when I went to bed. And when we had a power outage in Pacifica, I would put Dorothy on my lap and I would say to her, do your job, Dorothy. And she would pant away and I would survive the storm. I'm ashamed to say I actually lent Dorothy to shivering friends when they couldn't get their apartment or their house warm enough. Dorothy never knew she was being used. She thought she was getting an afternoon out. My two husbands left me as fast as they could when they realized that I was no better than a block of ice. So I recommend to all you women, rather than complain because it does no good and men never hear you, get yourself a hot little dog like Dorothy. I don't think it would work for a cat. If you got a cat, they pretty much give you affection on their own terms. I had a lovely cat named Michael, who was very fond of me, brought me many, many gifts like dead rats and little pieces of wood that he found outdoors, but he never let me hug him unless it was on his terms. As I recall, my little cat Eileen didn't mind my hugging, but she never generated the kind of heat that Dorothy did. Dorothy never minded being used, never minded the fact that I loved her for what she gave me instead of what she was. She loved me and was willing to take whatever I had to give her as long as I kept the food available and I kept her, gave her little walks during the day. I think that the fact that Michael wouldn't give me love had more to do with his being male than being a cat. But the kind of affection that I got from Dorothy was so overwhelming and so sweet that I think that maybe Dorothy could have stood a little bit of feminist philosophy. I think maybe it's a dog thing.